and welcome to a forest. No, a lane, an alley. Actually, no, welcome to what will hopefully be a more regular series on our channel. A multi-part documentary on a certain range or series of cars. In this case, the W116 Mercedes-Benz S-Klasse. So what we want to do is sort of give you an introduction to it in the first video. Then the second one will show you all the specs and different trim and models and engines and all of that. Then we'll do two videos, pros and cons, which should also, or negatives and positives, which can also double as like buyer's advice. And the last one will be anecdotal, emotional, owners, past and present, that tell you what it's like or what it was like living with one of them. Enjoy! This is the W116 S-Klasse. So the first thing we should probably talk about is W116. What does that even mean? And the numbers are actually just an internal code. They don't mean anything. They don't stand for capacity or any sort of sequence. Mercedes-Benz does like to sequence their cars, but in this case, the cars that came before this were the 108 and 109. Then came the 116 or 116 or 116, whatever you want to call it, it's correct. And the one after this was the 126 or 126. So there was no sequence to it. W means wagon or wagon, which means car or vehicle, passenger vehicle. V means long wheelbase. A means convertible. C would mean coupe, but there was no CW. No. All 116s were front-engined, longitudinally or north-south mounted engines, and rear-wheel drive. There was no four-wheel drive, no mid-mounted anything. It was a classic sedan layout. You only got them in standard or long wheelbase sedan, saloon, passenger vehicle shape, because there was no coupe, no cabriolet or convertible, and no Pullman. I'm not even sure if they did an armored version, perhaps as a special request. Mercedes-Benz realized, oh crap, we forgot to make a coupe, and while it's probably not that simple, what they did, they made the C107 SLC. That's essentially a fixed roof and extended wheelbase version of the popular R107 SL. The SLC ran alongside the 116 until the early 80s when the 126 appeared, and that had an identical coupe that came with it. In fact, here's a collage of most S-classes, and you can see that some of them had similar looking or identical coupe versions, whereas others, like the 116 and a few recent ones, didn't. Not quite sure what the thinking behind this is, but most of them were quite pretty. Most of them. So the 116 S-Klasse was built from September 1972 to around 1980, depending on the model. And they started initially with petrol 6 and 8-cylinder engines, 280 and 350. We'll get into those, the details and the horsepower in a later video. A few months later, in early 73, I think it was, they came in with the 450s. And also the long wheelbase cars. The longer wheelbase, you can spot them, the rear doors and everything is 10 centimeters longer or a couple of inches. And on the boot lid, if it has the badge, it'll end with an L for longer wheelbase. In May 1975, they added a very special model, the 450 SEL 6.9, which was the M100 engine that only had 280 something horsepower, but like a million torques. Very, very torquey, very powerful engine that made that car quite a hot rod. You could chase Porsches with it, I have it on good authority. So the 300 SD was only available in the US and in Canada, and please excuse me if I don't elaborate too much on it, but I've never even seen one, because I haven't been to those parts of the world yet. Development of the 116 began in 1966. It was designed by Friedrich Geiger, who was the first official head of the Mercedes-Benz styling department.
Apparently he was a very modest and reserved artist who painted beautiful watercolors in his spare time. He also did, or was responsible for, the designs of the 500K, the legendary Gullwing and 300 SL Roadster, Fintail, 600 Grosser, 108, 111, the Pagoda and 107, as well as the 116 ushered in a new Mercedes-Benz design language, which was slightly more square, with creases on the flanks, horizontal front light clusters, and larger ribbed tail lights, that sort of thing. And it was finalized in 1969. Officially, this was the first S-Class, S standing for S-Klasse, or special class. And besides the 600 Grosser, this was the largest and most luxurious Mercedes-Benz sedan on offer. Its rivals included various British and American luxury vehicles, and eventually the BMW 7 Series, although that didn't appear until 1977. That's still better than the Audi A8, who appeared around 1994, so rather late to the party. A total of 473,035 units were built of the W116. The very last car off the line at Sindelfingen in Stuttgart was around August-September 1980, and it was a silver 300 SD that went straight into the collection of the Mercedes-Benz Museum. You can find it on their Facebook page and, of course, in the museum itself, which you can also do a virtual tour of.
Did I mention the 300 SD was introduced in May 1978, so it didn't run for very long. Also around that time, they started working with anti-lock brakes, and the W116 S-Class became one of the first vehicles ever to offer the option of anti-lock brakes, which don't necessarily shorten your braking distance, but they make the car more controllable because you can steer it. I would demonstrate right now what the effects of no anti-lock brakes are, but we've got some sort of new A-Class behind us, and this car has a tow bar on it. That's not going to end very well for anybody. Ooh, it's very windy. Not that you'd notice in here, because this thing is impervious to wind. I've never driven anything that feels as sturdy as this. It doesn't feel wind at all. Excellent road bar. Leans a bit in the corners. Makes your keys jingle.
The S-Class has always been a pioneer in safety and comfort features, back then as it is now. Besides optional ABS brakes on later models, some of the W116 innovations were a double wishbone front suspension for better control, handling and ride comfort, a strengthened body structure with a rigid safety passenger cell, reinforced doors, stronger roof and stronger door pillars, front and rear crumple zones that absorb the impact of a crash, deflecting energy away from the passengers, a fuel tank which moved from the back of the vehicle in previous generations to above the rear axle, which is safer in a crash and makes for better packaging, a padded cabin with a soft dashboard, mostly soft or deformable cabin trim, as well as a padded steering wheel with impact absorber. On the outside, wraparound turn signals for better visibility, and of course ribbed covers which aid visibility if they're dirty, optional headlight wipers and washers, and, for the time, an optimized front windscreen wipe pattern with multiple wiper speed settings. The side windows almost guaranteed clear vision because of a cleverly constructed rain gutter all around. As a comparison, here's some footage where Fritz obviously taped the gutters closed. Same for the rear windscreen. The W116 has a gutter, and the effects of it are pretty clear in this video. There were many other innovations in this vehicle, mostly mechanical, and they were all engineered towards one point, to make this the safest, most comfortable vehicle in the world. At the W116 launch in September 1972, most journalists agreed, and plainly so did the car-buying public, with long waiting lists and close to 500,000 units sold in almost exactly 8 years. If you'd like to learn more about the W116 models, technical specifications or pros and cons, please keep a lookout for our other videos in this series. Thanks for watching.
drive with their fist on the top of the steering wheel. You see my watch?